So I'm going to spend the next hour Jesus, it's bright, talking about thermostats. So very interesting. So I'm going to talk about disruption, but actually disruption from within. So not from what a market's created, but what we've created. Couple of things. One, I'm normally used to doing this when no one in the audience has a clue about what I'm talking about. So in the land of the blind is always good. So I've got a bit of a problem. And then the second thing is I've got a few people from my team here as well. So no heckling and no saying that what I'm saying is completely wrong. So who, hands up, who've heard of Hive in the UK? Thank fuck. Right. So as a quick intro. So I am the product design and props director. I've got a couple of other things that I look after as well, but I'm in every reorg I try and get rid of. But mainly my job is to understand what does the customer want, and we then go and try and build it. I'm from a mix of corporate and startup. So I was in a startup when I got asked to come and help start up Hive right at the beginning. And the reason why I say that is because they're the sort of people that we were trying to recruit. And we were trying to recruit them because from day one we were trying to disrupt. And we were trying to disrupt our own business as well. Bearing in mind, British Gas, which was our original owner, if you like, and now it's Centrica, the group company, is a 200-year-old business. So we're trying to sort of shake them up in terms of, normally this is where I just shout out lean and agile and cloud, and hopefully people will think I'm really cool by saying it. You guys obviously know that shit. So, but trying to get that type of thing into an organisation that's 200 years old was a challenge. But they were the ones that identified that and brought in certain people. So the business has been going for, I think it's about 5 years. I think we've been trading for about 4 years. And all I'm going to do is just a real quick summary of really our philosophy of building a product, and hopefully that then brings out why we had to disrupt and what we go through. So hopefully I'll get a couple of points in there that you guys are interested in. First couple of slides, you could put a couple. I've changed this over time when I've done it, and just come up with product companies that I think have done a great job. And really, I just use an example. So Airbnb. I used to have Halo up here, but obviously Uber took over the world. So Uber's up there. And really, all these guys have tried to do is just work out pain points for the user and then solve them, okay? And that's all our job is. I go one step further to say, if you find that pain point and you solve it in the right way, what you've done is you've created a magical moment. And that's what product people and designers, that's what we're trying to do every single day. And if you do that, then you're disrupting something like obviously the two guys that I've just put on here. So what I mean by that is, the first time, let's talk about like the black cab waiting for a cab outside and it's raining, to a place where it's 3 minutes away and it's just turning the corner because you're watching it on an app and it turns up right in front of you. It's quite a magical moment the first time you do that. And if you can create that in someone, you get a feeling of they want to tell everyone, but almost they feel like they're the first people ever to have used it and experienced it. And that's what you're trying to find in every single product you try and design. Now, bearing in mind, I'm going to start talking about thermostats in a second. So that's my challenge. So, but it doesn't have to be like brand new tech either. This is First Direct. This is my text that I get on a Tuesday morning about the last few things that I've done and my balance in that account. I didn't realise until I put it up that actually every single one has my local pub included, and then the bottom one has Boots. So obviously there's a hangover problem there after drinking. Now the point of this one is, texts have been around for decades, but they've decided that after interviews of customer users over and over again, I can imagine that they've decided this is the best way to talk to someone. I'm going to text you, I'm going to do it on a Tuesday. Now, that's not by accident. That is a product person really identifying that problem and then speaking to that customer over and over and over again. And customer labs is the only way you can do that. It's not about hiding behind the two-way mirror. It's about speaking to them one-on-one and getting them to use things and getting to understand what their challenges are. And this is disruptive. When these guys were the first ones to sort of try and move bank into a mobile world. Obviously others are following and doing badly. But this is just one example. It's not just enough to find the product problem, because Spotify did this right at the beginning. And one of my startups, we were very close to digital music, so we knew this area very well. And it was all about, the problem was, don't just play what you've got in your library. Play every single song that's ever been recorded. That was the product promise. Now the challenge with that was everyone listened to the songs that they already owned. That was the thing. I think someone that was 85% of Spotify users right at the beginning of Spotify just listened to what they already owned. So they identified the problem, but they didn't take them through the door. They sort of opened it a little bit, but they didn't teach the person, this is how you're going to experience, this is how you're going to discover all this stuff. And then that comes from a design point of view. So you've identified that problem, but then the really iterations now of where Spotify are is I'm going to let you discover music now just by the amount of beats that you do in a run. It's ridiculous. No one would have thought about that a couple of years ago. And now their discovery engine is so much better than you just turn on Spotify and obviously you just listen to your own music. So they're all the product problems. Our product was a thermostat and hated by most people. And we obviously have thermostats in many territories now, but I specifically talk about the UK. It's a product that pretty much 90% of people in the UK couldn't work. They didn't know how to set up. And the point around that is, if you're in that industry, you don't think about how to disrupt it. And the way I always think about it is, I used to work at Dixon's and Best Buy, and if that was sold in a retailer, that would be the highest return product ever. You've bought it, and all you can do is turn it on and off, maybe up and down. What would you do if you could only do that with a TV? You'd send it back. But that, the industry wasn't thinking that way. They were thinking about, cost, just get it out there and get it on the wall. And obviously what we were doing here, and to obviously tip my hat to Nest as well. What they were doing in the US is how can we create something that customers can use? I'm going to create these lovely features, and how can we get them to use it? So that's the product problem we had. I'm just going to pause there for a second, because before we did that, we had to disrupt, obviously, from within, as I was saying before. So we had to set up something very, very different. We were asked, what's the best way to do that in terms of where we want to be located, what are the types of people we want to be. And the reason being is, bearing in mind we were born out of British Gas, is we were just different. It's not any rights or wrongs. It's not that we're doing it wrong. It's just that we were different. We're in a nascent market. You could argue it's still nascent. Not everyone understands IoT. Not everyone gets it. A lot of people won't get it. It's one of those challenges. It's uncertain. I mean, you could argue that about the energy market now. Fast-moving, high growth. Your energy is no better than someone else's energy. That's not going to therefore grow the market. It's just one of those things where all of these points were the ones that we were facing within connected home products and IoT. So what we decided, there's a 10-list plan that we came up with as founders. And we knew that we needed to do a couple of things. We knew we needed to get out quicker in the market, and we needed to sort of shake our parent company into, this is a great thing. Bearing in mind, they were the ones that identified it and gave us the right to play in it. And just some of those, sort of 10 points, the top 3 are really sort of internal, bottom 3 external. But we were very much in favour of, tech, different experiences, even to the point where we didn't really want to bring anyone in from the energy sector. It's not because they were bad people, we just didn't have a chance to train them up. I wanted people that knew what it was like to pay a person or pay for a server, because then that creates a different style of person, and that's right at the start. That's all we went for. We just went for those types of people that they are disruptive. And when you put people that are product design, UX, and you've got your tech guys there, all of those people, I'm probably speaking to a lot of them tonight. You just all want to change the world. All of that, that's what that type of career path makes. You just want to create new things all the time. You want to solve problems, and therefore you want to change shit. And what happens is you end up with quite a restless culture, and that's what we created with those types of people. Lean, and as you guys are obviously focusing on agile. For me, it tells me 2 things when I talk about lean and agile. One, which is it's just never done, it's never finished. You're just getting out as quick as possible. You get it in someone's hands, and you're just iterating all the time. The second thing is it stops developers giving me a fucking date when my product's going to be ready as well. But that's the downside. The location is a big one. It's a tough one. British Gas got a lovely office out in Windsor and out in Staines, but to get the best product, to get the best UXs, to get the best devs and data scientists, there's certain areas you need to be. Now, we could have picked any of the big cities, and that's where they pretty much are. You're not going to get them out. So don't put another barrier in the way. It was an odd one. It was a hard one to get through the board, but that's what we decided. So we've got a main HQ is in London. We've got 2 now because we've bloody grown too quick. And then there's the disruption from within only works if your parent company, which if the best way to look at it is, if you've ever been a startup and you've ever had to raise cash, is you get a dumb investor and you get a strategic investor. You know, a dumb investor is just, you know, somebody gives you money, and obviously a strategic investor is money, a distribution, and they give you support, right? And that's the best way of looking at what British Gas was at that time. They were like a strategic investor. But that only works is if they know what you're doing, if they understand it and they can come on the journey. They don't try and get involved too much, but they know that they've got assets that are really well worth handing over. So for us, it's the 10,000 brilliant British Gas engineers. You know, it's just that we know that that conversation was being had at the right time about going back to the thermostat is, okay, well, let's make sure they know what we're doing because they're the guys that are going to sell our stuff first. Air cover, always, you know, you need to, I think it's the founder of Pixar always talks about, you know, as he went further and further up the career chain, it was all about just keep the stage clear for everyone else to perform. And that's what these guys have had to do, both sides, our board and Centrica's as well. And then, as I say, results in a really creative culture. Very recently, we've also put in into the squad structure, stolen from Spotify. What that allows us to do is we've got bigger and bigger and bigger. Bearing in mind, all we had was heating to begin with, and we've just launched probably our 15th product, which is camera. Is by creating those squads, you just keep on with that startup mentality within each of the squads. You know, it's up to them what they're building because they're the closest to the customer. They'll tell us what's important. Now, the requirements are coming from strategy and commercial, but that's how you've got to run it. And the reason being is because, well, when we started, bearing in mind British Gas, these guys aren't my competition. I don't give a shit about these guys, to be honest. My big worry are some of the biggest companies in the world. I've already mentioned Google Nest. We've got Samsung. I've got Apple. And some of the best, brightest guys coming out of Silicon Valley. You know, you look at the Ring doorbell. You know, not if you've heard it. I mean, it's just exploded in 2 years. Absolutely exploded. So, and when I describe about how we've set up, everyone else of these, you know, this nature already set up that way. So, going back to the product. Very quickly, this is the first product in terms of the thermostat. We found 3 issues. Again, talking from customers, really understanding it. I have no idea how to use it. I think I'm using it too much. I'm wasting energy. It wasn't a green message. I'm just wasteful. And then the last one is, why does it look shit? You know, everyone's walking past this ugly white plastic thing. I've just had the decoration done. You know, bought my Sonos, I bought my Samsung TV, and you're making me put that thing up on the wall. It just doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense when you just say it out loud. But you know, within that industry, it made sense to them. You know, I find it slightly embarrassing anyway. And then the other thing we had to do was we had to create a brand. We knew we couldn't use the British Gas brand, and why? Because we wanted to be more than one territory. We wanted to talk in a different way. I wanted to get into places like Apple and Amazon. You know, and all of those things meant that we just needed the ability to maybe have a bit more of a playful nature in terms of our brand. So I don't know whoever saw the very first TV adverts that were sort of drug-induced by some weird agency. Definitely YouTube them, they're well worth watching. And then we grew up with Let's Get Wahooing. So yeah, similar agency, also on drugs. So, but what we've tried to do is we've tried to grow up the brand, and now, you know, multinational in terms of North America and Europe as well. So what did that all lead to? That led to, really, I still had a sort of a shitty white plastic thermostat. I didn't have time to be able to rebuild all that. So what we did is we just focused in on the app. This was our product. This was our thermostat. And I suppose there's a couple of things I want to pick out here when you think about disruption. Is there's a stat that says something like, you think about your energy company 3 minutes per year. And that's probably not a great 3 minutes as well as you open your bill. We've got half our base using it every single day. Yeah, that's disruptive. You know, that is just changing the conversation in terms of putting you in control, and it's up to you how you want to use it. And then the big one, obviously, as product people, is, look, would you recommend it to your loved ones and friends, which is, you know, through the roof. And it was just taking, you know what, I sometimes look at this and think, you know, it didn't matter that it was connected to IoT. It was just we created a product that customers could understand and use. It just so happened it was connected. The other thing I think the reason why we won, bearing in mind our biggest competitor being Google, is I think we just looked at the end-to-end as a product. We looked at every single touch point. And again, a lot of this wasn't easy either. So, you know, British Gas are the ones giving us the funding in terms of building this company. And we went and told them that we wanted to sell to every other engineer in the UK. That I wanted to sell in Apple, I wanted to sell in John Lewis. So again, that was a challenge. Installing by, you know, we believe the UK is number one, but you know, we need other installers. But what they go through and what they do and how they talk to the customer when they put the thing up is as important as what it looks like when they're using it. And then the last one, which is, to be honest, is a keynote on its own, our contact center Hive Hub, and the way they talk to customers is just in normal language. The NPS is ridiculous, where if you have a problem, it's almost as high as if you don't have a problem, because these guys are doing such a great job. I mean, honestly, that is a business we could probably spin off separately. Very briefly then, so then that was Hive 1, we then went into Hive 2. If you know much about industrial design, you'll probably know of Yves Bahar. If you don't worry. I think, you know, he always talks about he's the person Steve Jobs couldn't recruit. Forbes obviously do a far better job of introducing than I. He came up with some concepts for Hive 2, which is our thermostat that's out at the moment. As you can see, the three options that we went with. A couple of reasons why I put this up on the wall is because British Gas were getting excited about this thing was working. So they said, right, the second one, it could be like an iPad on the wall. It could be a big screen. It could do loads of stuff. You could maybe get on the web with it. Bringing it back to actually understand what a customer really wants is they just want it simple. And actually what we ended up doing was, after Eve told me that it's not this one, it's definitely this one, was we didn't want another screen in your home. You've got too many. And it should only maybe wake up when you want it to wake up. And we want to continue to put you in control. So yeah, we want a bit of automation, but we don't want learning. You haven't been able to use these things for 40, 50 years. So why all of a sudden am I going to try and pretend that I know that your schedule when you're in and out and build it for you? No, I'm going to actually give you the control of this thing. And what's really important to customers is, do you know what, give me a couple of buttons where I can just boost something. So if I want the hot water, I can boost it. If I want heating for an hour, I can just boost it. Everything about the product ended up being from a world-class Silicon Valley entrepreneur, but really everything was coming from our customers and our engineers. And we just went through absolutely everything. I always stop on this slide because we looked at every, how the batteries are done. I mean, the amount of call-outs our engineers get because people can't change the batteries or the time's wrong or whatever. So, we looked at every single thing. And the key here is, this is where the being part of the strategic investor makes sense. So on this development build, we had Yves Bahar, we had some product developers, we had some designers, but then we also had 100 engineers. And I've got more IP on the back of this thing, built by and designed by guys that were driving around in a blue van, helping you keep your boiler going, than I actually got from Yves Bahar. And that was the relationship that we started to build out, that we'd started to disrupt, and then these guys had sort of come on this journey with us, understood that they can be designers as well. They could own the IP as well, and that's the sort of the creativity that we went for. In the previous conversation, you guys, unfortunately, when I normally do a keynote, no one's seen this slide, but. This is the point around, you mentioned about, talking to customers and, speaking to 17 and 18-year-olds, and I'm sure I'll get arrested if I did that. But anyway, one of the things that we had to do was, with that thermostat, is just constantly talk to people about, try and do this thing, set this thing, try and do a schedule, work this thing out. And then every time that they got it wrong, we would go over it and over it again. And the reason being is, as a product designer, it's easy to do this. It's absolutely easy to do this. But the bloody problem is, the customers go that way. And as soon as they go that way, you lose them. You don't know what they're doing. So every single product we go through is just to make sure that that way we designed it actually is the way that the user is using it. So we got to a point where 90% of customers in the UK weren't setting up their thermostat. That's what our target was, and that's what we hit, which was 95% of customers setting up first time with no manual. You know, we wanted it to be iPhone-esque. We wanted it to be iPhone-like. And then we always finish off in terms of my product development is not just about product managers, it's not just about the designers and devs, but actually it was about the customers, it's about the engineers, everyone coming together to help us do that. So when we look at territories and we look at partners where we want to launch, we don't just want a distribution, we want some help along the way as well in terms of that design. So what did that lead to? A couple of things I'm just going to pull out. It was easier to set up, it was easier to do. If you've ever built anything in electrical retailing, you'll know that everything can be tested and scored from a global agency. It's a point scoring system. So we've got 78 point score. Put it into perspective, Samsung TV is probably about 65. iPhone's probably about 85. So as a thermostat, you know, where people couldn't use it, it's an outstanding score. And then a second one, bearing in mind we were disrupting from within. At the end of this was British Gas really winning the Cool Brands Award twice and getting into Apple, the most loved brand, one of the most loved brands in the world. You know, that's what we did for them. That's what we were really going for. And it's because all we did was just think about the customer whenever we were building anything. Real brief one in terms of why we design stuff ourselves and build stuff ourselves. It's because we think we can make a difference. Very boring products, a motion sensor. Most motion sensors are sticking out of the wall. Our one goes right into the corner, as you can see, because we changed the shape of it. And because we changed the shape of it, we can make it a little bit longer. That lasts 8 months. Normally customers don't change the battery. That one lasts for 6 years. That's why we design stuff. And why did we design a camera this time? And this is important. It's not a feature race. It's not about putting a load of shit in. It's about actually, can I use it? Will my daughter be able to use it? Will my mum and dad be able to use it? And that's what we went for with the camera, which we launched at CES last month, which went down fantastically well. Just in terms of what did we want to think about it? I wanted to design it in a way where it felt at home in your home. And I also wanted it to make sure that you knew how to use all of those features. So just conscious of time, one of the biggest challenges we had and what we had to build was the app. And the app the first time around was easy because all it was heating. I turned the heating up and down, I probably set a schedule. As soon as we started to introduce other products, all of a sudden you end up with a big layer. What we end up doing, our philosophy was this app, we don't get it right all the time, so if anyone's disagreeing with me, leave your feedback to someone else. It's normally, we went for a 2-layer app experience. So literally, no matter where you are in the app, you'll always be able to get something back to something familiar. This is the dashboard. You own that. You decide what's on it. You can change it. You can put your own actions and recipes on there, quick actions. So one of these buttons can put the whole house into away mode. That's up to you. But as you're going in and you're building stuff and you're going somewhere complicated, you can always come back out of it. So three more slides. One is for us in IoT and connected home. This is where it starts to get interesting for us. And also, I think it's the first time we actually changed the conversation. So up till now, we've been designing products on customer feedback, and that's how we build a product. What actions allows someone to do is say, if these things happen during this time, or while I'm in, while I'm out, then let all these other things happen. So the most obvious one is, when I'm out, put these lights on, turn these lights off, turn my heating off. And the key to this is, and the example I always give is, when my daughter Lily, 14 years old, walks home from school, from senior school, I know that I can turn the light on, because I know she's coming home. I can put a couple of lights on and make it feel a little bit more warm and friendly when she gets in. Now the point of that example is, it's my example. So we've been building products up till now that really we've been saying, this is what you can do with it. This is the feature you can do with it. With this, it's the first time we're saying, it's up to you what you want to do with it. Because this is now, it's their sketchbook. It's up to them what they want to do, which makes marketing it bloody hard, because obviously, what am I going to talk about it? But it's up to you now what you want to do and what you want to create on this actions engine. So 2 final thoughts. Normally, because I talk about product design, I obviously talk about disruption from within, so bear with me. So first one is around product. As I said before, it's our job. The only thing we've got to do as product people is just to find those magical moments. If we continue to do that, you end up with a successful product that they just keep on using over and over again. The second one, bearing in mind we're in a major organisation, customers don't care about PowerPoint slides. So what do I mean by that is, if 80% of what you're doing in your business, in a large corporate, bearing in mind a lot of you guys are product people and devs or whatever, is if it's not getting to the customer, why the fuck are we doing it? You know, and that's the challenge. When it flips the other way, they're the old corporates. They're the ones that are struggling. If you're justifying internally and not talking to a customer and finding that magical moment and therefore disrupting, then there's a challenge. That was it, and hopefully I didn't swear too much, so thank you.